India's most haunted village, Bemni. Vartika couldn't believe that her best friend from college, Payal, was getting married. Just today, she received Payal's wedding invitation at her house. Payal's family was from Bemni village in Himachal, and her wedding was also taking place there. Vartika was very excited because it was her first time attending a mountain wedding. 2 days later, she packed her bags and reached Bemni village. As soon as she entered the village, she got lost in the beauty of the mountains. But then, something strange happened. A man was shouting loudly and banging his head against a tree. Blood was dripping from his head, but strangely, the people around him did not seem to care at all. Vartika was too scared to go near him, but she gathered courage and took a step towards him. Just then, 2 people came, grabbed the man by his arms, and took him away. For a few seconds, Vartika was lost in thought when she suddenly heard someone calling her name from behind. She turned around and saw that her best friend Payal had come to receive her. Seeing Payal's henna-covered hands, Vartika completely forgot about the crazy man and walked inside with her. As they entered the house, Vartika noticed that some priests were making a salt circle around Payal's house while chanting mantras. When she asked Payal about it, Payal told her that this is how wedding houses are protected in the village. Hearing this, Vartika's mind was filled with even more questions. She wanted to ask more, but before she could, the other women in the house pulled them away to get ready. Within a few hours, both Payal and Vartika were ready, and everyone left for the wedding ceremony. The bride, groom, and their families were performing the wedding rituals at the mandap. As part of the ritual, the priest asked Payal to pour ghee into the sacred fire. But as soon as Payal sat in the mandap, she suddenly started shaking her head from side to side. When the priest asked her again, she picked up the entire pot of ghee and threw it into the fire. The fire blazed intensely, and the priest's hand got burned. Vartika, who was sitting near the mandap, watched in horror. Payal's hands started turning black, and she began hitting the ground violently with them. Her face was covered by a bridal veil, so Vartika couldn't see it, but her blackened hands terrified her. But strangely, none of the people in the mandap looked scared. Vartika found this even weirder. Since the moment she had arrived in Bemni village, something or the other strange had been happening. It was horrifying for her, but it seemed normal for the villagers. Just then, Payal let out a piercing scream, and her bridal veil fell from her head. What Vartika saw wasn't Payal's face at all. Her eyes were blood red, her hair was completely messy, and her teeth had turned sharp. She screamed like a wild animal. Payal's elder brother immediately ran out of the mandap, but the people sitting there still just stood quietly and watched. Vartika couldn't bear to see her friend like this. She gathered courage and tried to approach her, but Payal's mother stopped her and said, "Payal will be fine. The great priest will be here any moment." But Payal's condition was getting worse. She started pulling her own hair and muttering in some unknown language. Vartika couldn't take her eyes off Payal. She was trembling with fear. She couldn't understand why no one was helping Payal. She struggled and freed herself from Payal's mother's grip and ran toward Payal. Vartika tried to talk to Payal, and Payal calmed down slightly. But the moment Vartika got closer, Payal grabbed her neck with both hands and started strangling her. Just then, a priest began chanting mantras, and someone sprinkled holy water on Payal. Payal fell unconscious, so did Vartika. When Vartika woke up, she was lying on a bed. She was inside Payal's house. She looked around, but Payal was nowhere to be found. She searched for her everywhere, but Payal was missing. Just then, Payal's mother entered the room. She made Vartika sit on a chair and told her, "Last night, Payal's wedding took place, and she has already left for her in-laws' house." She continued, "What happened last night was a common incident in Bemni village. There is a centuries-old curse on this village. Evil spirits possess people here. There was a protective barrier outside the mandap, but someone erased it. That's why Payal was possessed by an evil spirit." Hearing all this, Vartika couldn't believe her ears. She immediately called Payal, and Payal was completely fine in her new home. That same day, Vartika left Bemni village and returned home. She would probably never forget that village or that wedding. Is Bemni village really cursed?